This is my live streaming setup, and at the heart of it is the Sony ZV-1 camera that I'm using as a webcam. Now, the Sony ZV-1 has been great as a webcam, but it hasn't always been that great. It actually took a lot of work to get this thing functioning the way that I wanted it for my stream. So today I thought I'd show you a few different setups that you can use with your ZV-1, walk you through the pros and cons, and of course we can figure out which one is best for you. Now, first things first, you wanna make sure you're on the latest firmware. Right now it's 2.01. Sony actually realized that this is such a great camera for live streaming that they added some additional streaming features within this firmware. So make sure you're on at least 2.01. I will link down to the firmware updater in the description below. So let's walk through the process of getting this camera set up for the first time. The first thing we want to do is turn on the camera, and we're going to set the camera to auto. So just tap mode at the top and make sure you're set to an auto mode. Next, we're going to navigate to the menu, go over to movie settings on page 2, and we're going to go to sub page 4 out of 9. And you should see at the bottom here, it says USB streaming mode. If it doesn't say USB streaming mode, that means you're not yet on software version 2. So make sure you've updated your device before trying this. Then it's gonna tell us to plug in the USB cable. So go ahead and plug in your USB. Something to note is that you're gonna have to toggle this on every single time you go to stream. So I have mine set up on my desk, and basically every time I wanna stream, I have to turn on the camera, unplug the USB cable, navigate to the streaming option, click it, plug the cable back in, and we're good to go. Unfortunately, it doesn't remember those settings, so I'm hoping that's something that they patch in a later firmware option. Now, this is the part of the setup where things get a little bit interesting, and that's when we start talking about the powering options for the ZV-1. It's not as simple as you may think. Now, the first option, of course, is the included battery, and because we're not recording on the device, we're simply streaming the output, you can actually get some decent time out of the camera. I was able to get about 90 minutes before the camera would die. But of course, I wanna play video games. 90 minutes is not nearly enough time. I wanna play all night long. So I needed something that was a little bit better than the battery inside. The next step was to toggle on the USB power mode. Now, not only is video data being transferred over the USB cable, it's also sending power back to your camera, which replenishes the battery slowly over time. To do this, we're gonna go into settings and setup, which is the briefcase over here. And we'll go to page 3 out of 6 and set this USB connection to mass storage. And we wanna set the USB power supply to on. Now, you would think that that would be indefinite power. I mean, it's constantly replenishing the battery. You can see the power icon right beside the battery indicator on the screen, but it's actually not. You can actually only get about 3 hours with that option before the battery becomes depleted again. So if you're using this for work, or maybe you're a student and you need a full day, or in my case, you're playing video games and you need more than 3 hours, I probably shouldn't, but in some cases I do, that's just not gonna be a good enough option. And that brings me into my next option, which was using a external USB power bank. This is great because you can actually use the camera for 10, 12 hours at a time. It's pretty reliable. The challenge is you're using your USB port now. So now you have to figure out another way to get the signal into your computer. In that case, you basically have to use the HDMI output, which means now you need a device like an ATEM Mini or a Elgato camera capture, one of these devices that are gonna run you $300 or $400. It's just not the most convenient option for a number of reasons. It's also the most cumbersome. You can't really move it around. It's super inconvenient. It's not gonna work. So that brings me to my final power option, which has completely fixed my problem and has allowed me to stream for more than 3 hours using the USB port. This is absolutely the best option. It's also really inexpensive, and I think that you should go for it right away if this is something that you're considering. But this here is a dummy battery, and the other end of this is a USB. So basically, this dummy battery tricks your camera into thinking that there's a battery plugged in, and it supplies it with constant power. Now hold on, let's pause right there for one quick second. Make sure that whichever dummy battery you get, that it only outputs 5 volts. This is really, really important if you don't want to fry your camera. So make sure that it only outputs 5 volts. I will link this one here. I've been using this for 3 weeks now. I'll link it down below so you guys have access to that. There's also a couple other ones that are very similar. I'm only gonna link this one so you know this is the one that I've used and that it actually does work, but also I am not responsible if something happens and your camera dies. So now it's pretty awesome. I can basically plug both USB cables into my computer, one for power and one for the video signal. Now there is a catch to using the dummy battery, and that's that you can no longer close your battery door. The 1/4-20 thread on the bottom of this camera actually blocks that battery door, so you can't open the door and use that tripod mount at the same time. So there is a fix for this. It's actually really simple and quite easy. And clearly a lot of people have had the same problem because there are a number of third-party base plates that you can get. This one is from a company called UU Rig, and it's number R054. Basically, you just thread this onto the bottom, And then it allows you to open up the battery door while it's threaded to the bottom. And it also has some additional cheese plates on the bottom side there, so you can thread your tripod into any one of these, gives you a few more mounting options, and then you can just leave your battery door open with the dummy battery hanging out. Of course, I will link to everything down below, but the dummy battery, I believe, was about $25, and the base plate was also about $25. I think my order was like $53 or something for the two of these things. So it's a pretty inexpensive, simple fix to be able to record for as long as you'd like. You know, I've done some 4 or 5 hour streams now. No issue of the camera overheating or turning off or anything like that. So I definitely recommend this setup. And if you guys want to see my streaming setup, I would absolutely love to show you guys that. I've had so much fun setting that up over the last few weeks, figuring out how to use all this equipment in a live streaming setup. It's been really cool and a lot of fun. So I'd love to share that with you guys. If you guys are interested in that type of content, make sure to like the comment that I've pinned down below. That's how I'll know to go ahead and start making videos like that. Also, if you guys want to see my video on the ZV-1's internal audio versus a Rode VideoMic Pro Plus, comparing the two different sound options, check out this video right here. I go over all of the details, testing range, testing the audio quality, testing the handling noise, all that stuff. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you guys in the next one.